You know, sometimes I think I'm the reigning champion of a very niche sport, provoking an HOA president into committing a felony. Drop a comment and tell me where you're from, because I seriously doubt you've heard a story crazier than the one that ended with our neighborhood matriarch demanding a helicopter extraction because my front door wouldn't bow to her will. This whole saga started, as these things often do, with a power vacuum and the one person pathologically driven to fill it, Mrs. Beatrice Cromwell. She preferred the title community chairperson, but behind her back, we all just called her the beige dictator, a nod to the only three paint colors she deemed acceptable for our homes. This particular Tuesday, her reign of terror culminated in a frantic 911 call where she breathlessly described me as a dangerous, barricaded suspect to the one person who knew I was probably just debating whether to have toast or cereal for lunch. My son, Alex, the 911 dispatcher on the other end of the line. She had no idea her hysterical performance was not only being recorded for posterity, but was being calmly managed by someone who had a front row seat to her brand of crazy his entire life. It all began innocently enough. Our previous HOA head, a lovely old fellow named Mr. Abernathy, who was more concerned with the annual chili cook-off, retired to Florida. Into this void stepped Beatrice, a woman whose entire personality seemed to be constructed from stiffly starched blouses and an unshakable belief that she was the sole guardian of suburban decency. I'm a retired security systems engineer. I spent 40 years designing access control for corporate and government facilities. Logic, rules, and the sanctity of a locked door are practically in my DNA. When Beatrice was elected, mostly because nobody else wanted the job, I figured, okay, a bit of a control freak, I can handle it. How naive I was. Her first act was to issue a 20-page addendum to the bylaws, outlawing everything from wind chimes to aesthetically unpleasing garden gnomes. My neighbor, sweet old Mrs. Peterson, got a formal warning because her prize-winning hydrangeas were excessively vibrant. It was a slow, creeping madness, and Beatrice, in her pristine silver Lexus that always looked like it had just driven off the showroom floor, was its high priestess. The final straw, the policy that set us on this collision course, was the Community Security Master Key Initiative. She announced it at a meeting, beaming as if she'd just cured the common cold. The HOA, she declared, would hold a master key to every single home for emergency access and routine compliance checks. A cold dread washed over me. This wasn't about security, it was about absolute power. I raised my hand. "Beatrice," I said, keeping my voice level, "could you cite the state law that allows a homeowners association to hold a key to a private residence without the owner's consent?" Her smile flickered. "It's a proactive measure for community harmony, Mr. Miller." "With all due respect," I countered, "proactive measures need to be legal. What you're proposing is a massive security and liability nightmare." Her face hardened. "The board had approved it," she snapped. The discussion was over. I went home that night and drafted a polite but legally ironclad letter, citing specific statutes and formally stating my refusal to comply. I sent it via certified mail. Then I upgraded my front door with a high-security, unpickable deadbolt and installed a few discreet security cameras. My son Alex thought I was being a little dramatic. "Just be careful, Dad," he'd said. "Women like that don't like being told no." He had no idea how right he was. or that he'd soon be a central character in her downfall. The weeks after my formal refusal were a masterclass in petty retaliation. Beatrice Cromwell, it turned out, had a PhD in harassment. Suddenly, my meticulously manicured lawn was a constant source of violations. One week, the grass was a quarter-inch too tall. The next, my walkway edging wasn't at a perfect 90-degree angle. I'd receive these notices complete with blurry, accusatory photos, and I'd respond to each with a calm, factual letter, including dated photographs and statements from my landscaping service. It was exhausting, like being nibbled to death by a duck, but I knew that was her goal, to wear me down. Her silver Lexus became a constant presence, cruising slowly past my house, her perfectly coiffed gray hair visible behind the wheel, her eyes scanning for any new imagined infraction. It was clear she was waiting, hoping for me to make a mistake that would justify a bigger move. The neighborhood was divided. Mrs. Peterson would give me a thumbs up when she thought Beatrice wasn't looking, and even slipped a newspaper clipping about a successful lawsuit against another overbearing HOA into my mailbox. But most other residents kept their distance, terrified of landing on Beatrice's hit list. The other two board members, a timid man named Gerald Finch and Beatrice's primary sycophant, Susan Vance, were completely under her thumb. They were enablers, too afraid or too invested in their minor roles to challenge her increasingly erratic behavior. My son Alex would call to check in, his tone shifting from amusement to genuine concern. "How's the war with the beige dictator?" he'd ask. I'd update him on the latest absurdity, and he'd just sigh. "Seriously, Dad, just move." But it was the principle of the thing. This was my home, not her personal fiefdom. The Master Key project, despite my formal objection, was apparently moving forward. Beatrice had reportedly found an out-of-state locksmith, likely someone who didn't ask too many questions, to create her keys. Notices for voluntary lock assessments started appearing, followed by letters threatening fines for non-compliance. I ignored them all, which only fueled her fire. Then came the morning. I was in my home office finishing up a crossword puzzle when I heard it, the unmistakable jingle and scrape of a key being inserted into my front door lock. My heart didn't race. It settled. This was it. I walked to the window and peered through the blinds. There she was, Beatrice Cromwell, resplendent in a painfully bright pink pantsuit, wrestling with my front door. In her hand was a single key on a large plastic tag that read HOA Master. She jiggled it, she pushed, she even tried it upside down. A look of supreme annoyance crossed her face as my high-security deadbolt refused to yield. My camera, perfectly positioned above the door, was capturing the whole pathetic performance in crystal clear HD. After another minute of fruitless wiggling, she stepped back, fuming, and pulled out her cell phone. I watched her dial, her lips moving angrily. I had a pretty good guess who she was calling, and I couldn't help but smile. It was a Tuesday morning. Alex was definitely on duty. I couldn't hear Beatrice's side of the 911 call, but I could see it. Her gestures grew more and more frantic. She was pacing my porch, stabbing a finger at my front door, then clutching her chest in a display of theatrical panic. This, I guessed, was after my son Alex, recognizing the address, had kicked into his professional de-escalation mode He would be asking her clarifying questions, the kind that subtly expose the absurdity of a situation. "Ma'am, can you spell Cromwell for me? And you're saying your HOA key won't open a private residence? Is the resident threatening you? Are you in immediate danger?" Each calm, procedural question must have felt like a personal insult to Beatrice's authority. Her voice, though muffled by the window, started to rise in pitch. "He's uncooperative. I am the chairperson. He has barricaded himself inside. It's a serious security breach." I had to admire Alex's professionalism. He knew I was likely in my slippers enjoying my coffee, yet he had to respond to the claims being made. Then, through the glass, I heard the line that sealed her fate. Her voice was a shrill shriek. "I don't think you understand. This man is unstable. I fear for my safety, for the community's safety. I think I need tactical support. And a helicopter, yes, an airlift. You need to send everyone now." An airlift. She had officially left the planet. She hung up the phone with a look of grim triumph, smoothing down her pink pantsuit and standing there expectantly. A few minutes later, the distant whine of sirens began, joined by the unmistakable thwump, thwump, thwump of a helicopter. First one police car, then two, then a fire engine and an ambulance. Our quiet cul-de-sac was suddenly a staging area for a major incident. Overhead, the police chopper circled, its downdraft messing up Beatrice's perfect hair. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed her face. I decided it was time. I calmly unlocked my perfectly functional door and stepped outside. Beatrice, who was in the middle of pointing at my house for a stern-looking police sergeant, literally jumped. "There he is, officer! That's him! He's dangerous!" The sergeant, a weary-looking man whose name tag read Diaz, gave me a long look, then looked at Beatrice, then at the circus of emergency vehicles, then back at me. "Good morning, Sergeant," I said calmly. "Is there a problem?" Sergeant Diaz held up a hand to silence Beatrice's sputtering. "Sir, we received a 911 call about a barricaded, potentially armed subject and a request for an airlift." I nodded slowly. "Ah, yes, Mrs. Cromwell, our HOA chairperson. She was trying to enter my home with an illegal master key. When my lock, a legal high-security one, wouldn't open, she appears to have gotten upset." Beatrice was aghast. "It's not illegal. He's lying." Diaz turned to her. "Ma'am, did he threaten you? Did you see a weapon?" Her eyes darted around. "Well, no, but his refusal to allow an inspection is highly suspicious." "He's in his own home, ma'am," Diaz said, his patience wearing thin. He turned back to me. "Sir, just for procedure, would you mind if we confirmed there's no emergency?" "Not at all," I said. "Please, come in. My son, Alex Miller, is one of your dispatchers. I believe he may have taken the call." Sergeant Diaz's eyebrows shot up. The pieces clicked into place. The dangerous subject was the father of one of his dispatchers. While his officers did a quick walkthrough, I showed him the footage on my tablet. He watched Beatrice fumbling with the key, then heard the audio of her demanding an airlift. His face turned to stone. When the video ended, he turned slowly to Beatrice. "Mrs. Cromwell," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "making a false police report is a felony. Misusing this level of emergency services." He didn't need to finish. "Officer," he said to his partner, "place Mrs. Cromwell under arrest." The click of handcuffs was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The aftermath was swift. Her arrest opened the floodgates. The investigation into the false 911 call quickly uncovered years of financial fraud and embezzlement from the HOA accounts. Her trial was short. The video was undeniable. She was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in state prison, plus restitution to the county for the cost of her little helicopter fantasy. Our neighborhood is quiet again. Mrs. Peterson is the new chairperson, and her vibrant hydrangeas are now the pride of the community. Beatrice wanted a key to my home, but in the end, her own lies and arrogance forged the key that locked her away for a long, long time.